All right, y'all. I'm sorry, baby. I told y'all. I said as soon as we get something, I was coming back. And we have it, you guys. We haven't shared this live. You're hearing it here first because I don't see nobody else reporting on it. Share this live. I actually ended my straight talk to be able to get this information to you guys. It is in. The submission is in. This woman has submitted an acquittal. The motion is in. Yes, I had to stop it. Y'all share this live. I think I'm the first. Nobody else is talking about this right now. It literally just came in. Okay? So let's get on it. She submitted an acquittal. Okay? Share this live. Share this live right now. Right now, it's in. It's in. It's in. Hold on, y'all. It's in. Share this live. Share this live. Share this live. You said, what if it comes in while I said that. I said, what if it comes in while I'm doing my straight talk? I'm shutting it down. Share this live, y'all. Exclusive, 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 fresh off the press. Nobody is covering this. Share this live. Share the live. Share the live. Share this live. The motion is in. The motion is in. Share this live. Share this live. We're about to get into the docket. Share this live, y'all. I'm about to read it. I don't think nobody else is reading it. All right. All right. Hey, y'all, we finna get into it. Okay, this woman has submitted an acquittal. An acquittal. Okay, let's get into it. It's in. She also submitted for a new trial. Y'all. 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 Okay, I'm finna download. I'm downloading it. Y'all, it's coming in. I just refreshed it again. And I just refreshed it again. And she also submitted for a new trial. She also submitted for a new trial, y'all. This woman is batshit crazy. Excuse me. A new trial, y'all. Okay. Okay, hold on, y'all. I'm just updating everything. I had to stop my straight talk. I knew it. I felt it in my gut. I said, I'm going to be doing straight talk and watch what's going to happen. We finna get into these docs. We finna get into these docs. This lady has submitted an acquittal and a new trial. An acquittal and a new trial for R.KELLY. An acquittal and a new trial for R.KELLY. Okay, I'm downloading all the documents so y'all can see them firsthand. Exclusive, exclusive, y'all. I'm downloading the documents. Wow. She submitted an acquittal, y'all. An acquittal and a new trial. She submitted an acquittal and a new trial. Okay, let's get into it. Hey, Tears. Okay, I'm pulling it up. I'm sorry. I had to download everything. Y'all, this woman is crazy. Okay, I got y'all. Hold on. I got to download. It's a lot of documents. Okay, that's downloaded. Okay, now let me get the other set of documents downloaded with the acquittal. With the new trial. Oh, she's trying to push the date back. Okay, anyways, let's go ahead and get to these documents. Let's go ahead and get to the first round, okay? All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I knew this was going to happen. Okay, so let's see what she submitted with her old special needs as. Okay, let me. Yeah, now we got to wait on Judge Ann, but I'm telling y'all, the way Judge Donnelly moved, she going to respond. Okay, I got it up, y'all. Y'all know I'm not about all that talking. We're going to get to it. Ain't no choke over here. We're going to just get right into it. Okay, all right, let me get it up. Get it. Where it go? Which document is it, Whitney? Where is it? Boom. It's in, y'all. Let's go. Okay. All right, there it goes. Okay. So let me do this. Okay. Let me put myself at the bottom of the screen. Okay, y'all. Exclusive. First hand right here. Let's get into these documents. Okay. All right. Where it go? Sugar, honey, I see. Okay. Defendant Robert Kelly's memorandum of law in support of a judgment of acquittal. So this trick is trying to go for an acquittal. Okay. So what is an acquittal? If you guys will, let's actually, y'all know I'm about trying to look up stuff to see what it is. Okay. So an acquittal is a judgment that a person is not guilty of the crime with which the person has been charged. I know you lying. I know you are lying. Okay, let's continue. This woman is crazy. And it's probably by way of R.KELLY. Wow. Okay, so she is submitting a judgment of an acquittal. All right. Let's go. Listen to this, y'all. The government failed to prove defendant guilty of the offense of racketeering count 1. The government's proof did not establish an enterprise. Child, let's get into this. Read. Let's see what the squeeze is. Come on now. What are we talking about? Child, let's go. Okay. Okay, so that's introduction. Yada, 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 yada. Okay. Okay, relevant facts. The government charged defendant with 1 count of racketeering based on 14 predicate acts. Wow. That's funny, y'all. We was just reading about this on at Mrs. Channel, but I digress. I don't want to hold y'all up, okay? All right. And 8 standalone counts of violations of the Mann Act that were also charged as racketeering acts. With the exposition of Racketeering Act 1, alleging the offense of bribery. The charged offenses include conduct alleged by 5 women: Geronda, Jane Doe number 4, Jane Doe number 5, Stephanie, Jane Doe number 2, Sonia, Jane Doe number 3, and Faith, Jane Doe number 6. The jury returned a verdict convicting defendant of all charged counts, but acquitted him of those racketeering acts related to Sonia. I knew they was going to go after that. I mean, who didn't know that? We knew that. Okay. It goes on to say that given the length of the record, defendant will incorporate relevant facts into the argument sections as appropriate. Argument. This court must set aside the verdict of guilt entered against the defendant and enter a judgment of acquittal where the government presented insufficient evidence of the offense of racketeering count 1 and all Mann Act violations counts 2 through 9. Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 29C provides that if the jury has returned a guilty verdict, the court may set aside the verdict and enter an acquittal. A court can enter a judgment of acquittal on the grounds of insufficient evidence only if after viewing the evidence in the light most favorable to the prosecution and drawing all reasonable inferences in the government's favor. It concludes no rational tier of fact could have found the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. United States versus Reyes, 302 F3D 4856, second circle 2002. The substance a conviction. The jury must have been able to find each of the essential elements of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. So basically, you guys, as we're reading it, if I'm not, I'm not no, judge or whatever the case may be. But what I'm gathering from this is they're basically saying that because of that one count, Sonia, they saying throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. That's what I'm gathering. I think that's what I'm gathering, right? But let's continue. Y'all can chop it up in the chat. I don't know. That's what I'm gathering from it. Let's continue. Wow. Child. As set out in the detail below, defendant's RICO conviction cannot stand where the government failed to prove the existence of an enterprise. That's a lie. Y'all know they had a whole freaking blueprint with the freaking octopus, with the arms, said it was an enterprise. But I digress. Girl, child, I know you lying. The activities of which affected interstate commerce and a pattern of racketeering activity. Moreover, insufficient evidence existed to prove each and every element of the charge Mann Act violations by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. What? Girl. Anyways, the government failed to prove defendant guilty of the offense of racketeering, count 1. This court must acquit defendant of the offense of racketeering where the government failed to prove defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of each and every element of the offense. The government effectively swamped the jury with bad character evidence that was guaranteed to produce a guilty verdict. But its proofs on the charge offenses were insufficient. As a matter of law, ignoring the distinctly economic legislative history of the RICO statute, the government brought a RICO prosecution against defendant, not to remedy widespread criminal activity of an enterprise, but to punish one man whose alleged crimes could no longer be prosecuted by state and local agencies. The government's belated interest in protecting defendants' alleged victims does not justify application of the RICO statute to alleged private sexual misconduct of defendant and only the defendant, even if some of that conduct could have been timely prosecuted by local authorities long ago. As a reminder, RICO's primary purpose was to combat organized crime by prosecuting the highly diversified acts of a single organized crime enterprise under a RICO's umbrella. The overreaching goal of the statute was to curb the infiltration of legitimate business organizations by racketeers in its statement of finding and purposes accompanying the RICO statute. Congress declared the following. The Congress finds that 1, organized crimes in the United States is a highly sophisticated, diverse, and widespread activity that annually drains billions of dollars from America's economy by unlawful conduct and the illegal use of force, fraud, and corruption. 2, organized crime derives a major portion of its power through money obtained from such illegal endeavors and syndicated gambling, loan sharking, the theft and fencing of property, the importation and distribution of narcotics and dangerous drugs, and other forms of social exploitation. 3, this money and this money and power are increasingly used to infiltrate and corrupt legitimate businesses and labor unions, and to subvert and corrupt our democratic process. 4, organized crime activities in the United States weaken the stability of the nation's economic system, harm innocent investors and competing organizations, interfere with free competition, seriously burden interstate and foreign commerce, threaten the domestic security, and undermine the general welfare of the nation and its citizens. And 5, organized crime continues to grow because of defects in the evidence gathering process of the law, inhibiting the development of the legally admissible evidence necessary to bring criminal other sanctions or remedies to bear the unlawful activities of those engaged in organized crime, and because the sanctions and the sick remedies available to the government are unnecessarily limited in scope and impact. It is the purpose of this act to seek the eradication of organized crime in the United States by strengthening the legal tools in the evidence gathering process, by establishing new penal prohibits, and by providing enhanced sanctions and new remedies to deal with the unlawful activities of those engaged in organized crime. Organized Crime Control Act of 1971 of you. Okay, y'all see that. Adamantly, prosecutors have used RICO in a wide variety of circumstances under the statute's liberal construction, clause H, J, and y'all see that. The liberal construction clause, notwithstanding, the Supreme Court has acknowledged that the clause is not without limits. They give you an example. As the court held in Reeves, the liberal construction clause was not an invitation to apply RICO to a new purpose, to new purposes that Congress never intended. The government clearly exceeded those limits with these prosecution, as evidenced by its failure to prove the charge offense of racketeering. To sustain a conviction for RICO, the government must prove that the defendant, 1, through the commission of 2 or more acts constituting a pattern of racketeering activity, 2, directly or indirectly invest in, maintain an interest in, or participated in an enterprise. 3, the activities of which affected interstate or foreign commerce, okay, as set out below. The government offered insufficient proof of all elements of the offense of racketeering, did they? Okay. The government's proof did not establish an enterprise. What? What are we talking about? Okay, I'm over it. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. Let me keep reading. Hey, Bobo. The government's case was doomed from the start, where it failed to plead and prove an enterprise. What? An enterprise includes an individual, partnership, corporation, association, or other legal entity, and any union or group of individuals associated, in fact, although not a legal entity. What? Did she not just say in any individual? Is R.KELLY not an individual? Does he not have an enterprise? Like, literally, I'm confused with that. I'm so confused with that. Anyways, sorry, y'all. I just don't get that. What the heck? Okay. The United States Supreme Court has defined a RICO enterprise as a group of persons associated together for a common purpose of engaging in a course of conduct. That applies too, but baby, even by definition that you said, sweetheart, any individual, that is R.KELLY. And they went for him. Okay, whatever, child. We need Angie because what do I know? An enterprise is demonstrated by evidence of an ongoing organization, formal or informal. What? And by evidence that the various associates function as a continuing unit. They did. What is she talking about? They did. It was informal. Okay. For an association of individuals to constitute an enterprise, the individuals must share a common purpose to engage in a particular fraudulent course of conduct and work together to achieve such purposes. They did. What? They've been watching these YouTubers. What the hell? Girl, you give me your definition of what was Child. Okay. Anyways, child, the enterprise's purpose must be common to all of its members. It was. And here goes the example. Y'all look that up. The enterprise is neither the individual defendant nor the pattern of racketeering activity. Rather, it is an entity separate and apart from the pattern of activity in which is engaged, and must be alleged and proven separately. However, there must be a nexus between the enterprise and the racketeering activity that is being conducted. God, this is stupid. This is stupid. Furthermore, the RICO enterprise must have a certain attainable structure, separate and distinct from the pattern of racketeering activities. Finally, for that purpose, okay, the person charged with a RICO violation and the alleged enterprise must be separate and distinct from one another. Yeah, I feel like I'm in the freaking Twilight Zone. This requirement flows from the sanctuary mandate that a person who engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity must be employed by or associated with the enterprise. What the hell? Yo, they were employed. He even tried to put Geronda on as an employee. Y'all, it's the gaslighting for me. I know, y'all, I got chills. I know this ain't what she submitted. Y'all, I'm speechless. I know this ain't what she submitted. Robert, this can't, okay, let me continue because I know y'all like Whitney Reed. Y'all, I'm just like, this is stupid. This is what she submitted on his behalf. Child, okay. They were employed. What is she talking about? An entity cannot simultaneously be the enterprise and the person who conducts its affairs. Do she not remember the employees? He's the head of the enterprise, but it was other. Okay. Permitting that would be tantamount to permitting an entity to associate with itself. Common purpose. It is in its third superseding indictment, the government alleged that the defendant, his employees, managers. I thought he didn't have no employees. Okay. Managers, bodyguards, drivers, personal assistants, and runners, and other members of his entourage constituted the enterprise for RICO purposes. According to the government, the purpose of the enterprise was 1, promote defendant's music, his brand, recruit women and girls to engage in illegal sexual activity with the defendant, and 3rd, produce pornography, including child pornography. But I could have sworn that it was no pornography. Okay. The government did not allege that the enterprise constituted a legal entity, but rather an association of individuals. What? for him. This woman is stupid. Oh, I feel sorry for y'all. I can't wait to see what Judge Donnelly say. This is stupid. She's stupid. They proved everything of what she's saying. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. This is stupid, yo. Like, what is she talking about? It's like circle. I think R.Kelly told her what to say. As held in Satinwood, for an association of individuals to constitute an enterprise, the individuals must share a common purpose to engage in a particular fraudulent course of conduct and work together to achieve such purpose. They did. They were getting underage girls for this man. That's fraudulent, sis. And they knew what they were doing. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. She don't want no. I know this fool ain't trying to do another trial. I know this ain't what she want. Emphasis added. Thus, for the government to establish an enterprise here, it was required to prove that defendant, his employees, and entourage came together with the common purpose of recruiting women. They did what? She's stupid. Yo. And entourage came together with the common purpose of recruiting women. They did. And girls to engage in illegal sexual activity. They did. And produce pornography. They did. The nigga recorded it. Okay. Not merely the broader purpose of promoting defendant's music or brand. Assuming the defendant's employees and entourage did share a common objective of promoting defendant's music, that objective had no nexus to the underlying racketeering activity. Defendant did not go through all the trouble of becoming a world famous R&B singer for the purpose of engaging in illegal sexual activity. That just came along with the territory trick. What are you talking about? Just like we're hearing with the allegations with Trey Songz. What are you talking about? They hide behind the celebrity. Girl, get out of here. Even if his job put him in proximity to women, girls, baby, the government cannot end run the common purpose requirement by identifying a broad objective of the enterprise, unrelated to any fraudulent activity with no nexus to the racketeering activity. The government's evidence of an enterprise was insufficient because it failed to establish the defendant's employees and entourage shared the common purpose of recruiting women to engage in illegal sexual activity. Oh my God. This woman is stupid. She looked at this evidence and this is what she came up with. Thank you, Karen, for your donation. Wow, y'all. This is what she submitted. With the defendant that included creating pornography. Child. Notably, the government does not define illegal sexual activity. They what? Illegal sexual activity, baby, is that some of these victims were underage. That's illegal. What was not proven? Oh my God. Notably, the government does not define illegal sexual activity, but based on the predicted acts charged, the government contends that the defendant's employees and entourage shared an objective of ensuring that defendant had his sexual needs met by women, some but not all underage women. While at home and while traveling, was able to control these women to engage in sexual conduct the government deems abusive. Okay, this woman is Looney Tune. Was able to videotape his sexual activities with these women and could expose his sexual partners to herpes. To be clear, the government contends that making sure that the defendant's sexual needs were met was the objective of the enterprise in addition to promoting his music and brand. Concedingly, the government offered evidence that defendant's various employees carried out some tasks that related to connecting the defendant to women with whom he had a personal, even sexual relationship, or with women who he with women whom he was interested in having a sexual relationship. These tasks included providing defendants' phone number to women who attended his concerts, inviting women to after parties, arranging for travel for defendants' female guests, and ordering food for those guests while they visited his property. However, the record is devoid of evidence that the members of the enterprise acted with the common objective of ensuring that the defendant engaged in legal sexual activity. They joined him at times. What? Okay. It is true that RICO does not have a mens rea requirement beyond what is necessary for proving the predicate crimes, burner, crop. Okay, y'all see that. But where the government's evidence of an enterprise centers on its claim that the associated, in fact, members shared a common purpose of ensuring defendants' illegal sexual activities, the government must offer some evidence that the members of the enterprise knew that their actions were promoting not just legal sexual activities, but illegal sex. They knew. You had people that were on the stand that they said that they knew that these girls were underage. And okay, child. Okay, all right. Sexual activities and the production of pornography. Put in terms expressed in Satinwood, the government was required to show that the individuals who made up the enterprise shared a common purpose to engage in a fraudulent course of conduct. To share a purpose requires the members to agree on what that purpose is. Defendant is not claiming that each member of the enterprise must have possessed knowledge about every predicate act that the defendant is alleged to have committed, but the government cannot prove a common purpose without showing that the members of the enterprise shared in understanding of what that purpose was, which, according to the government, was promoting illegal sexual activity and producing pornography. Despite its bullying tactics, the government came up short on evidence that all of the defendant's employees who made up this vague enterprise were working as a continuing unit to ensure defendant could engage not just in sex, but illegal sex. My God. No employee testified that she understood that their purpose in the enterprise was to recruit underage women. What is she talking? Yo, she's not familiar with this case. She's not familiar with this case. Yes, they did, bro. You had employees on the stand. What is she talking about? Y'all, she don't know this case. This woman is way in over her head, yo. She don't know this case. I feel she don't know this case. She don't know this case, y'all. This is embarrassing. This is not a win for the other side. This is embarrassing. She don't know the case. Sis should have put in a little more time. She probably heard this from R.KELLY or was online somewhere. No employees testified that he or she understood that their purpose in the enterprise was to recruit underage women, nor did any member of the enterprise present any testimony that they had any knowledge about defendant's herpes diagnosis. The doctor did. He was a part of the enterprise because he knew about the underage women. He knew about the medicines that he had to allot to him. What are you? Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. If I'm getting on y'all nerve with the commentary, y'all let me know. It's just, this is my first time reading this too, and this is ridiculous. That he practiced unsafe sex, or that he videotaped his sexual experiences. He used to share them with them. Sis don't know this case. The government can point to no evidence that they employed possess specific information about what precisely transpired in defendant's bedroom. Once he was alone with his female guests, even if defendant's employees knew that defendant expected his guests to follow strict, even controlling rules and possess recording devices like iPads and iPhones, it does not follow that the members of the enterprise shared a goal of promoting illegal sexual activity. Wow, this woman is nuts. C, enterprise distinct from racketeering activities. To the extent the government argues that its evidence showed that the members of the enterprise shared a common purpose and had knowledge of promoting the defendant's illegal sexual conduct, the government has failed to demonstrate that the purpose of the enterprise was distinct from the from the racketeering activities. Person, enterprise, rule. Separately, the government was required to demonstrate that defendant was distinct from the enterprise. It is exonerate that 1962 clearly envisions that the person and the enterprise will be distinct. Okay, you see this one, the Bennett. Okay, this requirement focuses the section on the culpable party and recognizes that the enterprise itself is often a passive instrument or victim of the racketeering activity. Okay, the United States Supreme Court has held that a RICO defendant must be participating in the conduct of the enterprise affairs. He was. He participated. What is she talking about? Okay. The government cannot plead its way around the distinctness requirement by simply alleging that the enterprise is defendant's inner circle and introduce a series of headshots of all of the defendant's former employees as evidence of an enterprise. He titled it as an enterprise. The enterprise, as alleged by the government, existed because of its goal to promote the defendant in his legal and alleged illegal sexual activities. It had no function unrelated to the defendant. Under this factual pattern, the distinctness requirement was not satisfied. Child, because the government's RICO prosecution under this fact pattern is entirely unique. It's not that unique. It was a white dude that actually got the same charges as R.KELLY. What are we talking about? Can y'all put that in the chat? The white dude that was going through the same thing that R.KELLY was at the same time. What was his name? Put that in the chat. This ain't that distinct. What are we talking about? It's because he's black. That man was white. He had the same charges as R.KELLY. This one, okay. This is stupid. There is a dearth of factually analogs authority on this issue. That said, guidance offered in factually dissimilar cases leads to the clear conclusion that the government failed to prove an enterprise distinct from the defendant. In Riverwood, Superior, okay, y'all see that, blah, 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 claims through acts of, my bad, okay. Riverwoods claimed that through acts of extortion and mail fraud, the defendant, Marine, okay, then I got nothing to do with us, okay, all right, then I got nothing to do with us. They talking about that particular law, okay, okay, yeah, it's still talking about the law. Okay, in its complaint, Riverwoods alleged, y'all, this is all about this particular law. I'm going to scroll down. No, it wasn't Epstein. Yeah, Keith. Thank you, Lavelle. Yeah, it was Keith. Keith Rayner, I think. I don't know. It was some white man got the same charges. Not the one that she was trying to get off or got off, whatever. Y'all, this particular law. I'm gonna pass through it because it's 63 pages total, and I'm trying to just read through them as much as I can. Okay, here it goes right here. It continues for R. Kelly. Okay. Okay. Second Circuit reiterated that under the plain language of the statute, the RICO person must conduct the affairs of the RICO enterprise through a pattern of racketeering, and that the person and the enterprise referred to must be distinct. The court emphasizes that a corporate entity may not be both the RICO person and the RICO enterprise, acknowledging that the distinctness requirement could be satisfied where there is partial overlap between the RICO person and the RICO enterprise, and that a defendant may be a RICO person and one of a number of members of RICO enterprise. Okay, it's just still breaking it down. Okay, however, by alleging a RICO enterprise that consists merely of a corporate defendant associated with its own employees or agents carrying on the regular affairs of the defendant, the distinctness requirement may not be circumvented. Okay, and that's another law or whatever. We just going through that. Okay, they just breaking down the law, that particular law. Y'all can go back and read it. That's why I got it on the screen. Okay. All right. The court reasoned both the allegations in the complaint and the proof at trial show that the individual members of the this is still about this particular law. Okay, y'all can go back and read this. I'm just trying to really read what is pertaining to R. Kelly. Okay, so I do apologize, and if it's fuzzy right now, y'all bear with it. It is going to clear up when you play it back. Okay, but yeah, this is just the breakdown of the RICO and all that stuff like that. I'm trying to go as slow as I can. But it's basically saying, you know, how they got to separate it and make it distinctive and all that stuff like that, okay? All right. Okay, here we go. Applying the rules of the foregoing cases, the government failed to prove an enterprise distinct from the defendant. By alleging a RICO enterprise that consists of defendant and his own employees, agents, carrying on his affairs, namely promoting his brand, his music, and his sexual needs, the government fails to satisfy the distinctness requirement. Put differently, because the government alleged that defendants' employees associated together for no purpose other than to carry out defendant's needs, including his illegal sexual activity. The employees did not form an enterprise distinct from defendant. Defendant and the alleged enterprise were one in the same? Oh my God. Okay. The government failed to prove that the so-called enterprises activities affected interstate commerce. To sustain a conviction for racketeering, the government must offer proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, we know that. Okay. And this section declares that it is illegal for any person employed by or associated with any enterprise engaged in or the activities of which affect interstate or foreign commerce to conduct or participate directly or indirectly in the conduct of such enterprises affairs through a pattern of racketeering activity. This provision anchors the act to Article 1, Congressional power by incorporating and affecting interstate commerce requirement. The United States Supreme Court has determined that an enterprise is engaged in commerce when it is directly engaged in the production, distribution, or anguish of goods or services in interstate commerce. Okay, United States versus Robertson, y'all see that. However, consistent with the liberal, okay, all right. That's just the breakdown again. All right, of that. Okay. All right, so let's get down here to the bottom. It says rather it is the enterprise and its activities considered in their entirety that must be shown to have that effect. No source was provided for the specific statement of law. Assuming the government was only required to prove that the enterprise had a de minimis effect on interstate commerce, the government failed to establish that element by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Because the existence of the enterprise in this case hinges on the specific activity of promoting defendant's illegal sexual activity rather than promoting his music, the government was required to prove that those racketeering acts affected interstate commerce. Courts have held that to satisfy RICO, only the enterprise and not the predicate acts themselves must affect interstate commerce. However, that is only where there a nexus between the objective of the enterprise and the charged racketeering activities. While the government may and did argue that the defendant's activities centered around promoting and performing his music affected interstate commerce, the charged racketeering acts are untethered to those activities. The government cannot end run the affecting commerce requirement by claiming an economic purpose of the enterprise that has no connection to the charged racketeering activities. The government's ability to prove an enterprise turns on its claim that the purpose of the enterprise was to promote defendants' illegal sexual activities and create pornography. Okay. Thus, the government does have to prove that those activities affected interstate commerce. Defendants' alleged conduct of engaging in sexual activities with young women under the age of 18, exposing adult women to herpes, and or videotaping his sexual activities with the individuals under the age of 18 cannot be said to have any impact on interstate commerce. Oh my God, today. Okay. All right. Indeed, the de minimis effects approach here amounts to an unconstitutional extension of Congress's commerce power and is contrary to RICO's distinctly economic legislative history. It is beyond debate that the legislative history and the congressional findings accompany the act reflect congressional. Okay, God. Some scholars have. Okay, so this is just the argument about the RICO charge that we're going over. Again, you guys can go back and read this. I'm trying to get to the gusto of this. And so she's just breaking down this particular RICO charge, okay? All right, I'm going slow enough so you guys can run it back, okay? All right. The government's proof did not establish a pattern of racketeering. The government must also demonstrate a pattern of racketeering activity by proving at a minimum 2 predicate racketeering acts that occurred within 10 years of one another. C18, proof of 2 predicate acts is not sufficient to satisfy its burden of proof. The government must also show that the racketeering acts are related to each other and to the enterprise, and together pose a threat of continuing criminal activity. Okay, y'all see this. This lady is crazy. Predicate acts must bear a relationship to each other that manifests the continuity required to prove a pattern. It was proven. This nigga was a freak of nature. He kept doing the same stuff over and over and over to everybody. He kept moving the same way, giving the same pieces of raggedy ass paper with his number on it, having them literally print out pieces of paper to cut up to distribute What are we talking about? Girl, you don't know this case, sis. Unacceptable to predatories or isolated or sporadic criminal acts. Criminal conduct only forms a pattern if it embraces criminal acts. It did. It was illegal. They were underage. Focusing on the relatedness requirement, the predicate crimes must be related both to each other, term horizontal relatedness, and to the enterprise as a whole. Okay. Horizontal relatedness can be shown through predicate acts that have the same or similar purpose, result, participants, victims, or methods of commission, or otherwise are interrelated by distinguishing characteristics and are not isolated events. This is crazy. Okay, so they're breaking down that particular law. Again, this is a lot of what she's doing. She's referring to other people's cases and situations. This is definition, as y'all see. And again, y'all can go back and read this for yourself. I'm trying to get to what her point is of this, okay? Not even going to lie to you. In contrast, criminal activity that by its nature projects into the future with a threat of repetition. He was the king of repetition. What are we talking about? He continued to do the same stuff over and over and over again. He was a freak of habit. He continued to do the same stuff over and over and over again. Girl, what are you talking about? This woman is Looney Tune. Good luck. Good luck with this. Good luck. So, y'all, this is still just by definition. When the business of an enterprise is primarily unlawful, the continuity of the enterprise itself projects criminal activity into the future. Similarly, criminal activity is continuous when the predicate acts were the regular way of operating that business, even if the business itself is a the government. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Get to it, girl. The government failed to demonstrate a pattern of racketeering activity because it offered insufficient evidence of most of the predicate acts, and the charged acts lacked sufficient relatedness and continue to. Girl, okay, she's an idiot. She's an idiot. Okay, here we go. Racketeering Act 1, bribery. The government failed to prove Racketeering Act 1 where insufficient evidence exists to prove that defendant caused Demetrius Smith to pay a public aid employee $500 to secure identification for Jane Doe number 1, Aaliyah. So, okay, girl. So he just did this out of his own remission. Okay? He was going to marry Aaliyah. So it was no reason for Demetrius to do it. So they didn't share a conversation in the car. Girl, you don't know this case. She don't know this case. She don't know this case, clearly. They had a whole conversation leading up to the fact of the matter what they needed to do. Despite blatant, strong arming by the government, Smith's testimony was inconsistent and vague about whether the defendant was even present during any discussions about paying money to bribe someone for the fraudulent identification. Smith consistently testified that he discussed the prospect of bribing someone to obtain the fake identification with Darrell McDavid. Smith did not obtain any money from the defendant and did not recall discussing it with him, although he allowed that he might have whenever Smith failed to testify. Precisely as the government wanted, he was refreshed with his prior statements, not because he needed refreshing, but as a clear reminder that if he contradicted himself, he could be charged as a conspirator, that type of bullying pervaded Smith's examination and suggested that Smith's testimony may have been pressured by the government. After this subject matter had been discussed numerous times throughout Smith's testimony, the AUSA asked the following on redirect. When you spoke to the group as you testified on direct examination, when you spoke to the group about acquiring a state ID from the welfare office, Aaliyah for money, the defendant was there, right? He answered, I'm pretty sure. I think so, but I'm not. I'm just not positive. Even if I said it before, I'm just not positive. I just don't see that in my head right now. Not satisfied with that answer, the AUSA asked Smith again whether the defendant was present. Yeah, so they can get clarity. Anyways, when there was any discussion about a bribery, despite his clear concern of facing legal repercussions for his testimony, Smith declared, I don't remember if Robert was there. If I said he was there before, I'm not changing that story to change the story. I'm just going back and I'm just trying. I don't see it in my head. Robert next to me. No rational juror could conclude that this then convincing testimony provided proof beyond a reasonable doubt that defendant caused Smith to tender money to the public aid officer, even if the evidence showed that the defendant turned to Smith for assistance in facilitating his marriage to Aaliyah. The offense of bribery requires proof that defendant at least knew of Smith's intent to bribe public officials. Girl, so we gonna act as if R.Kelly didn't know. So this fool had no recollection of anything that was going on within his dominion. Girl, I know you're not finna pull this. I know she's not finna go there. I just know she's not finna go there. So okay. The record is devoid of evidence that defendant knew how Smith obtained the identification or facilitated Smith in obtaining the identification. As far as defendant knew, Smith obtained the identification from a friend who worked in the public aid office. Without Smith's equivocal testimony that defendant was part of the planning process of obtaining the fraudulent identification, the evidence was insufficient to sustain the bribery offense. Furthermore, Racketeering Act 1 bribery lacks both vertical and horizontal relatedness. It was an isolated offense having no connection to the other charged acts or to the purpose of the enterprise itself. Child, yes, it did. He needed that to cover up this alleged pregnancy for one, and to cover up the fact, okay, indeed, as discussed, okay, a supra, whatever that means. The record simply fails to show that in 1994, any enterprise existed that had a common purpose of facilitating defendant's sexual desire for minors. Smith testified at length that he had no idea that defendant was involved in any of sexual relationship with Aaliyah or any other young women. What? Smith was certainly part of defendant's close circle of confidence, but the mere identification of a group of people who worked for the defendant does not an enterprise make. Smith did not testify about any other conduct in which he engaged to advance the alleged purpose of the enterprise. Girl, yes, he did. Yeah, he did. He said he saw Aaliyah and her friends, and they were underage. What is she talking about? Smith's conduct was nothing more than a singular event that bore no connection to the purpose of the enterprise, which did not exist in any event, and which bears no connection to the other racketeering acts. Furthermore, because the act did not occur within 10 years of any other predicate act that was sufficiently proven, the act is time barred. Racketeering Act 1 was not proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Child. Racketeering Act 2, sexual exploitation of a child. Stephanie. The government failed to prove Racketeering Act 2, that is sexual exploitation of Stephanie, where it offered insufficient evidence that defendant used employee. Hold on, y'all. But he didn't get charged with this. Am I right? He didn't get charged for this. So why is she even bringing this up? He didn't get. Okay, I'm confused. Somebody help me here because I'm so confused with this. He didn't get. That's not one of the charges. But okay, I'll read it. It offered insufficient evidence that defendant used, employee, persuaded, induced, or enticed Stephanie to take part in sexual explicit conduct for the purpose of producing a visual depiction. The government contends that on a single occasion prior to her 18th birthday, defendants had sexual relations with Stephanie at his studio in Chicago, Illinois, and recorded the episode on a video camera. The government cannot produce the video or the camera on which it was allegedly recorded. To be clear, the defendant is alleged to have recorded a legal and seemingly consensual sex act under the law of the state of Illinois that was only a violation of 18 USC, because Stephanie was not 18 of years. What? I thought she was. What is she? I'm so confused. She gonna make me go back and read it. He wasn't even charged for her. Okay. 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 Let me continue. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm confused by that. To demonstrate that the defendant committed sexual exploitation of a child, sonnet to 18, so and so, it is not enough for Stephanie to simply allege that defendant recorded sexually explicit conduct. Stephanie offered no testimony that proved that defendant used, persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced her into sexually explicit conduct. Stephanie had an ongoing sexual relationship with the defendant before the video recorded incident and after the video recorded incident. Although she described those sexual experiences in hindsight as humiliating, it does not follow that defendant did anything to persuade, induce, entice, or coerce her into the sexual activity that was recorded. We know that. That's why he didn't get convicted for that. So what are you talking about, sis? He didn't get convicted for that because it wasn't proven. So what are we talking about here? In fact, Stephanie admits that the defendant called her on the phone and told her that he was picking her up and that he wanted to make a video of us having sex and that he would be there shortly. To which Stephanie responded, okay. Although Stephanie clearly regrets this decision, her own testimony shows that the defendant did not something, but did nothing, sis. Okay, did nothing. But tell her he wanted to videotape them having sex, and she agreed. Okay, she gonna make me go back and read some stuff. The government must prove that defendant did something more than just film the sexually explicit conduct. If the act of filming or recording alone was sufficient to sustain the charge, Congress would not have included a requirement that the defendant employ, persuade, induced, entice, they say entire, or coerce. Furthermore, the government failed to prove that defendant acted with a purpose of producing a visual depiction of that conduct. Although the jury was erroneously charged that the government could sustain the charge by proving that the purpose was transmitting a visual depiction, the statute requires something different. Indeed, producing is defined by the statute as producing, directing, manufacturing, issuing, publishing, or advertising. While the statute also prohibits the transmission of live visual depiction, defendant was not charged with transmitting a live visual depiction, and there is no evidence that he did. Lastly, the parties' stipulation that the film used in VHS tapes was a type of film that was not produced in Illinois is insufficient to prove by a reasonable doubt that the conduct was recorded on a device made in a foreign country or affected interstate commerce. Accordingly, the government failed to prove Racketeering Act 2 by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Racketeering Act 5, Mann Act violation, geranda. The government failed to prove Racketeering Act 5 where there was insufficient evidence that defendant used a facility of interstate commerce to knowingly persuade, induce, entice, or coerce geranda to engage in sexual activity that violated Illinois law, and that defendant knowingly committed the prohibited sexual activity. She was underage, and he had her suck her up. Okay, all right, okay, child. To obtain a conviction under this law, the government must show that the defendant used a facility of interstate commerce to knowingly persuade, induce, or entice any individual who is younger than 18 years old to engage in sexual activity of a criminal nature. She had DNA. First, the government did not prove that defendant used a facility of interstate commerce to persuade geranda to engage in aggravated criminal sexual abuse between May 2009 and January 2010. Defendant contends that purely interstate use of cell phones does not constitute use of a facility or interstate commerce. Okay, this law right here. Okay. Even if purely interstate use of cell phones constituted use of a facility of interstate commerce, the government's evidence that defendant called geranda on a telephone is not sufficient proof that he used the facility of interstate commerce, a cell phone, according to the government, to knowingly induce, persuade, entice, or coerce geranda to come to Olympia Fields to engage in prohibited sexual activity. This lady does not know the case. This lady does not know the case. She don't know the case. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Let's continue. The government provided no text exchanging showing that defendant used any words to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce, nor did Geronda testify that during any telephone conversation or on any text messages that defendant used words for the purpose of inducing, persuading, entice, or coercing her to come to his home or studios for prohibited sexual activities under the plain reading of the statute. There must be a nexus between the use of the cell phone and the words of persuasion, enticement, or coercion to satisfy a violation of this magnitude. Okay, then. All right. And then once there, he coerced her into let me go back. For example, if defendant called Geronda and invited her to a party at his home, and then once there, he coerced her into prohibited sexual activity, that does not constitute a Mann Act violation. Since the defendant did not use the facility of interstate commerce, the cell phone, to coerce or induce her into the prohibited sexual activity, use of the cell phone for some unknown communication coupled with a subsequent prohibited sex act is not sufficient to establish a violation. Lastly, if defendant really believed that Geronda was 17 when they engaged in sexual activity and that that belief was reasonable, then he would not be guilty of aggravated criminal sexual abuse. Taking the evidence in the legit most favorable to the prosecution, no reasonable jury could conclude that the defendant knew that Geronda was 16 years old when they allegedly engaged in sexual activity between May 2009 and January 2010. Geronda turned 17 years old in April 2010. Oh my God. This woman is crazy. This woman is crazy, y'all. He knew. But anyways, Geronda turned, Government's Exhibit 70, which depicts a photo of Geronda, would fail to put any reasonable person on notice that she was 16 years old rather than 17 years old. The record reflects that Geronda habitually lied about. This woman is crazy. This woman is crazy. The record reflects that Geronda habitually lied about her age. When she was 17 years old, she befriended a 23-year-old woman with whom she would attend defendant's Illinois state court appearance in 2008. Girl, we know that. To gain access to those court appearances, Geronda had to demonstrate that she was 18 years of age, presumably by showing an identification. After using her older connections to get invited to a party at defendant's home in Olympia Fields, she sought out the defendant and falsely told him that she was 19 years old. To be clear, there is no evidence that defendant sought out Geronda. Okay. Geronda impulsively claims that after going through all the trouble of lying about her age to get close to the defendant and pass his security team, she decided to disclose her true age of 16 immediately after their first sexual encounter. Geronda claims that defendant was indirect to her age and continued to engage in sexual relations with her until January 2010. The government's evidence falls painfully short of proving that the defendant did not reasonably believed that Geronda was 17 years old. At the time of their alleged sexual activities, the government allegedly recovered a copy of Geronda's fake ID and birth certificate in a storage facility perpetually belonging to defendant, rather than reach the obvious conclusion that Geronda provided a fake ID to defendant's security team to gain access to the home. The government alleges that defendant or someone in his inner circle went through the trouble of altering her ID and photocopying it. No rational juror could conclude that defendant engaged in sexual activities with Geronda with the understanding that she was not legal, consistent age. This is crazy. This is crazy, y'all. Forced labor. No rational juror could conclude based on the evidence adduced at trial that defendant knowingly obtained or agreed to obtain any labor or services from Geronda on January 23rd, 2010. A conviction of forced labor under that statute requires the government to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the defendant obtained the labor or services of another person. 2, through inter alia threats of serious harm. And 3, the defendant acted knowingly. United States versus, you see that the language by means of contained in the forced labor statute, okay, requires the government to establish a causal link between the labor and services provided by the person and the threat of serious harm. Okay, and that is the law, as you guys see right here on the screen. Section 1589 is intended to address serious trafficking or cases where traffickers threaten harm to third persons, restrain their victims throughout physical violence or injury, all right, or threaten dire. Okay, hold on. Okay, sorry. Section 1589 intended to address serious trafficking. I think, okay. Serious trafficking or cases where traffickers threaten harm to third persons, restrain their victims without physical violence or injury, or threaten dire consequence by means other than avert violence. The harm or threat of harm considered from the vantage point of reasonable person in the plan of the victim must be sufficiently serious to compel the person to remain in her condition of servitude when the otherwise would have left. Part of a fair reading of statutory text is recognizing that Congress legislates. Okay, y'all see it. Okay. All right. Okay. Congress intended to reach cases in which persons are held in conviction. Okay. All right. Here we go. According to the government, on an isolated date in January 2010, defendant violated the forced labor statute by using threats of violence to obtain labor. An act of oral sex from Geronda, the forced labor statute was not intended to reach isolated conduct like that described by Geronda. Accepting the government's evidence in its best light, Geronda described an isolated incident in which the defendant allegedly assaulted her because he was angry that she was on her phone and did not properly acknowledge him when he entered the room. Geronda claimed that defendant slapped and choked her because he didn't believe that I was texting a friend and he got mad about it. Geronda testified that after the purported assault, she sat down with the defendant in the VIP room and he instructed her to perform oral sex on him. Geronda complied with the instructions. Geronda did not testify that defendant threatened her, forced her, or even demanded that she give him oral sex. Geronda did not claim that she feared defendant would assault her again if she declined the request. Geronda then left defendant's home and never came back. The government did not establish a causal link between the isolated act of oral sex and any threat of physical violence. Any physical violence that occurred during that episode in January 2010 preceded Geronda providing oral sex to the defendant. Geronda's testimony simply does not lead to the reasonable inference that she gave defendant oral sex because she feared physical violence. Really? Okay, child. Geronda did not claim the defendant used any words suggesting she would suffer an assault. If she did not provide him with oral sex, nor did she claim that she feared another assault if she refused his request for oral sex. Geronda did not even testify that she did not want to give defendant oral sex. As troubling as Geronda's story may be, the government still must prove the element of the crime of forced labor by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It would not have taken much for Geronda to make the causal link between the act of oral sex and her fear of physical assault by the defendant. But she simply did not provide that testimony. Absent clear expression of congressional intent, courts should resist the urge to transform the forced labor statute to cover the circumstances alleged in Racketeering Act 6, which bear virtually no resemblance to those predicaments, forced labor cases and their victims. Okay, and y'all see that depiction, okay? Describing prostitution, forced sweatshop work, and forced domestic service as, this forced labor, okay? Geronda came and went as she pleased. Even if defendant prohibited her from wandering his property at will, defendant did not force Geronda into a condition of servitude through threats of physical force and an isolated example of oral sex with an alleged abuse act is just not forced labor. Racketeering Act 7, sexual exploitation of a child. Okay, Geronda. The government failed to prove Racketeering Act 7, that is sexual exploitation of Geronda. According to Geronda, during her 6-month sexual relationship with the defendant, he recorded her with a Canon video camera and on an iPhone. The government produced no images or metadata corroborating this claim. Rather, the government contends that evidence that defendant owned a Canon video camera and had an iPhone that had the ability to video is sufficient evidence to establish the elements of the offense. The government failed to prove that defendant used, employee, persuaded, induced, or enticed Geronda to take part in sexually explicit conduct for the purpose of producing a visual depiction. To demonstrate that defendant committed sexual exploitation of a child, personate to 18 U.S. Y'all see that, okay? It is not enough for Geronda to simply allege that defendant recorded sexually explicit conduct. Oh no, that's not enough. Child. This is crazy. I really want to know what Judge Donald is going to say. Geronda's testimony was insufficient to prove that defendant used, persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced her into sexually explicit conduct. According to Geronda, she had an ongoing sexual relationship with defendant before defendant allegedly video recorded her. A relationship that defendant would have no reason to believe was prohibited since Geronda misrepresented her age. Child. Sorry, y'all, my feet. Although Geronda described those sexual experiences in hindsight as humiliating, it does not follow that defendant did anything to persuade, induce. Hold on, y'all. I apologize, y'all. I'm sorry. This is crazy. This is crazy, y'all. And sorry this is taking a long time, but it's a lot of pages that I'm reading over, okay? That's why I'm kind of skimming through, and you guys can come back. Wow, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Okay, let me continue, y'all. I do apologize. Wow, I don't, okay. I'll tell what I think after this. All right. It does not follow that defendant did anything to persuade, induce, entice, or coerce her into sexual activity that was recorded. The government must prove that the defendant did something more than just film the sexually explicit conduct. If the act of filming or recording alone was sufficient to sustain the charge, Congress would not have included a requirement that the defendant employ, persuade, induce, entice, or coerce. Furthermore, the government failed to prove that defendant acted with a purpose of producing a visual depiction of that conduct. Although the jury was enormously, erroneously charged that the government could sustain the charge by proving that the purpose was transmitting a visual depiction, the statute requires something different. Indeed, producing is defined by the statute as producing, directing, manufacturing. Okay, we know that from the other charges. The defendant was not charged with transmitting a live visual depiction, and there is no evidence that he did. What? Oh. Okay. Lastly, the government's affecting interstate commerce evidence was, oh, sorry, y'all. Hold on, y'all. Okay. I'm just going off camera. I'm still here. Lastly, the government's affecting interstate commerce evidence was insufficient where it could not establish that what device, if any, was used to make these recordings. Racketeering Act 8 Mann Act violations with Jane. And y'all, this is Azriel. Okay, so we get into Azriel. Okay. The government failed to prove that defendant committed Mann Act violations in connection with his sexual activity with Jane on or about April 28, 2015 and May 1st, 2015. In the state of California, Jane was 17 years old in May of 2015. She concedes that she misrepresented her age to defendant when she met him and kept her true age a secret until fall of 2015 after meeting defendant in Orlando, Florida in April of 2015. Jane traveled to meet him in California at the end of April 2015. The government charged defendant with 2 Mann Act violations in connection with this trip. Okay, baby, let's get to it. Because y'all know I know about Azriel, okay? First and foremost, her birthday's in December, Trick, okay? You idiot. Her birthday's in December. So even by that, she still was not of age, girl. She still was 17 until December. So even if she lied about her age or whatever the case may be, sweetie, she did eventually come and tell him right before she had to go home to go to school. That's why she cut that real short. Y'all notice that? Peep this. She go on to the next act. Y'all peep that? She go right. She bypassed that. You see that? Racketeering 8A. Yeah, you bypass that because the girl doesn't turn 18. Azriel's birthday is in December. And she told him in the fall. So technically, she still was not of consenting age. Period, poo. Sorry. Okay. Let's continue. I know you lying. Racketeering 8A, transportation. Okay. Preliminary, the government's use of the Mann Act under the present set of facts is unprecedented and unjustified. This right here provides that whoever knowingly transports any individual in interstate or foreign commerce or in any territory or possession of the United States with intent that such individual engage in prostitution or any sexual activity for which any person can be charged with a criminal offense or attempts to do so shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. The government contended that defendant arranged for Jane to travel to California with the intent of willfully exposing her to a contagious, infectious, or communicable disease in violations of California Health and Safety Code. Okay. The government failed to prove a Mann Act violation. What? Where it offered insufficient evidence that defendant transported Jane with the intent of exposing her to herpes and committed a violation of California health. Child, what are you talking? Okay. All right, let's continue. I'm sorry, y'all. Intent. Because there is no link connecting defendant's transportation of Jane with an intent to expose her to herpes, defendant cannot be guilty of a Mann Act violation. The 9th and 10th Circuit Courts of Appeal have held that to establish the intent requirement of the Mann Act violation, the government must prove that the illegal sexual activity is the dominant, significant, or motivating purpose behind the transportation. Okay, and of course, again, that breaks it down. This is crazy. Y'all, this is crazy. Okay, so y'all see, this is just a breakdown again. I kind of try to scroll past it. You are more than welcome to go back and read it yourself. I'm just trying to pass through it so we can get to the point. All right, here we go. The defendant alleged violation of a California health law prohibiting him from exposing a partner to herpes was incidental to the trip. What is she talking about? How is it incidental when you know you have herpes, bro? You knew you had herpes. How's that incidental? Oh, my goodness. Good luck with this being approved. Mm, 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 mm. Mm, 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 mm. There is no proof in this record that demonstrates that defendant's motivating purpose in transporting Jane to California was to expose her to herpes, where it was to have sex with her, and he knew he had herpes. So yeah, that was proven. Girl, in fact, the government cannot even show that the motivating purpose of the trip had anything to do with Jane. It did, because he wanted her to live with. Okay. As Jane herself testified when asked, and while you were 17, did you take additional trips to California with the defendant? She responded, yes, I did. And do you remember where you traveled to? She said, I do not. Do you remember what the purpose of your travel was for? He had shows. Girl, I know you lying. In short, no rational juror could find that the government proved that defendant intended to transport Jane to California. To California was to infect with herpes. Girl, violation of California Health Safety Code, and y'all see the code. Second, the government did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that defendant committed a violation of California Health and Safety Code, because the government charged defendant with a repealed version of the statute no longer in effect, a version that reduced the government's burden of proof. Prior to the jury charged in this case, defendant notified the court that the jury instructions did not reflect the elements of California Health and Safety Code, as you see. The government acknowledged as much, but argued that it charged defendant under the statute that was in effect in 2015. The government had no authority to charge defendant with a statute that was repealed or inoperative at the time of prosecution. In case a statute is repealed or rendered inoperative, no further proceedings can be had to enforce. And y'all see all that. Okay, keep going. And y'all, this is the code provided, as you guys see. All right. The statute was overhauled entirely in 2018 after the California. Okay. So it's just saying that, okay, having been passed during an era of discrimination toward those afflicted with HIV. Okay. So that's what that's saying. It's just telling you why they no longer use that or whatever. It got changed over. Okay. All right. So here we go. When it gets to R. Kelly. Thus, the government not only charged defendant with a repealed statute, but rewrote it in clear violation of various constitutional provisions, including the separations of power clause and principles of committee. Defendant's jury was instructed pursuant to a statute that never existed. A California court has no authority to rewrite a California statute, and neither does a district court sitting in New York. Even if the government had the authority to charge defendant under the 2015 version of the code, the statute does not pass constitutional muster. Most obviously, the statute is void for vagueness, both on its face and as applied to the defendant. The doctrine of vagueness guards against arbitrary or discriminatory law enforcement by insisting that a statute provide standards to govern the actions of police officers, prosecutors, juries, and judges. And it just keeps going on with this particular regulation. Okay. All right. This is interesting, this part. Okay. It says under this statute, parents with herpes simplex 1, again, 50% of the population, would be prohibited from kissing their own children. One cannot imagine how many arbitrary prosecutions could take place in this current era of pandemic. Okay. Right, let's keep that. Okay. All right, here we go. Even if the elements of the statute were, as the government alleged, insufficient evidence existed to sustain the charge, he had hurt. Okay. The government did not prove that defendant was contagious, infected, or had the capacity to transmit herpes during the sexual encounter he had with Jane in May of 2015. He had herpes. I am so confused. He had herpes. What you mean? The doctor came in y'all, I don't know about this one. I seriously don't know how she's okay. Let's continue. Additionally, the government cannot show that the defendant acted willingly with knowledge of the consequences. So basically, they're saying that he was basically oblivious to the law against him spreading these cooties without telling people first. So he didn't know. And if he knew that he couldn't do that, he wouldn't dare spread his cooties around to everybody. That's basically what they're saying. But effective treatments exist for herpes that significantly reduce outbreaks and the likelihood of transmission. If defendant was consistently taking Valtrex in April of 2015, it cannot be said that he willingly exposed Jane with knowledge of the consequences, particularly since Jane was not infected with herpes in April of 2015. This racketeering act cannot be sustained where it was based on a repealed law, was rewritten, and was facially unconstitutional in any event, coercion, or enticement. The government alternatively, my bad, y'all, argues that defendant is guilty of the Mann Act stemming from his April trip to California because defendant knowingly persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Jane to travel to California. Insufficient evidence exists to prove that defendant took any action to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Jane into traveling to California in April. What? April through May of 2015. Quite the opposite. The record shows that Jane's mother purposefully and strategically enticed defendant with her 17-year-old daughter, comparing her to Aaliyah at various points. Okay. All right. That this chicken head has clearly been listening to these people online. Are you kidding me? What? Y'all, what is she talking about? The government takes great umbrage to this characterization, but the record speaks for itself. Although defense counsel did not make much use out of it. Government's Exhibit 233 offers powerful evidence showing that defendant had no reason to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Jane into going to California with him. Text messages introduced by the government show that Jane, with the guidance of her mother, enticed defendant. Y'all, she is talking about, okay, who reasonably believed Jane was 18 years old to bring her to California. In short, when Jane traveled to meet defendant in California in April through May, or May, she required no enticement, persuasion, or encouragement of any kind. Wow. On April 11, 2015, Jane attended one of the defendant's concerts in Orlando, Florida. After the show, someone provided Jane with the defendant's phone number. Jane attempted to text the number on the phone and gave the paper to her mother. Although Jane did not reach the defendant, Jane's mother began texting the defendant posing as her 17-year-old daughter. Jane eventually communicated directly with the defendant via FaceTime and told the defendant she was 18 years of age. On April 20, 2015, Jane's mother, still posing as Jane, initiated text messages with defendant and arranged for Jane to meet the defendant at a hotel in Orlando. And we all know that that's not true in regards to those text messages. But okay. Government's Exhibit 233 shows that Jane and her mother knew from the start that the defendant was interested in Jane sexually. That was a lie. What is she talking about? Y'all know that was proven to be a lie. Believing that she was of a legally consenting age before Jane's first meeting with the defendant, Jane's mother texts Jane stating, "This man trying to screw, but I'm trying to make it business. He knows you are a singer, but he ain't playing. He want to F tonight." 233, GX 233. Despite that, Jane and her mother were on notice that defendant was interested in Jane sexually. Jane's mother encouraged Jane to meet defendant. She told Jane to keep defendant's curiosity procured. No, she didn't. Child. And advised her about what she should wear to effectively entice him. That is not true. During her, she told her not to be dressing inappropriately. During her in-court testimony, Jane testified that she went to meet defendant solely to audition for him, but her contemporaneous text messages revealed that Jane was more interested in defendant for personal and romantic reasons. Girl, Jane texts her mother, "He's so fine." When Jane's mother told her to be ready to sing something, Jane said, suggesting that she did not actually want to audition for a defendant. Girl, Jane's mother encouraged Jane to tease defendant, but not to do anything sexual. With him, since he would then lose interest in her. Believing that he was speaking to an 18-year-old Jane, defendant texts Jane's mother that he was staying on the tour bus, but was going to get a hotel room for their privacy. Jane's mother then shared that message with Jane, texting, "Yup, he said he's staying on the tour bus, but he wants to get a hotel room for just y'all so y'all can get away from security and managers, etc." Jane's mother gave Jane some final advice before she sent daughter to meet defendant, who believed Jane to be 18 years old. Be prepared to sing 3 songs. He said he will be meeting you and listen to your song. Please have your glasses off, hair to side. Mama knows best pretty hurts. And third, your choice. Don't yell. Put on a show. Dance, grab his hand, shimmy, wiggle, sit on his lap, entice him while singing. It's all about performance. This your chance, an opportunity. Don't blow it. Jane's mother even told Jane not to look grown. Emphasis added. Child. Take off that ugly ass lipstick. I told you he don't want you to be grown. I told you to keep hair curly. That ish look a mess. You need some jeans or shorts. You trying to look grown. He wanted you because you look young and innocent. That's what he want. Not a little girl trying to be grown. You're a damn fool. Okay. Defying her mother's advice to merely tease defendant, Jane engaged in sexual conduct with defendant in the hotel room. Jane stripped down to her undergarments and walked back and forth for defendant. She later acquiesced to removing her clothes, testifying that she got on top of him backwards and he did lick my butt. After the sexual encounter, officers arrived at the hotel room and knocked on the door. After arranging for Jane to meet the defendant in his hotel, Jane's parents apparently called the police. Jane described the defendant as nervous and anxious, asking her to confirm that she was 18 years old, as she had represented. Jane testified at trial after the defendant looked through the peephole. He made me go into the restroom immediately and told me to get dressed. And he said, "Are you 18?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Don't lie to me." And I said, "Yes." Defendant opened the door, and the police checked Jane's identification to confirm her age before leaving. Defendant was present when police officers checked Jane's identification. Rather than calling it night, Jane again removed her clothes and got on top of the defendant to continue their sexual activities. After her first encounter with defendant, Jane told her mother that defendant had asked whether he could fly her to meet him. Jane told her mother, "I said, duh." Jane continued to communicate with the defendant via text messages and by phone, and continued to spend time with the defendant in Orlando, doing normal dating activities such as seeing movies and eating out. At one point, Jane's mother got frustrated with Jane for not prioritizing her music with the defendant. On April 23rd, 2015, Jane's mother texted her, "You need to let him hear your songs. Let him see your video. You trying to date the man. You need to let him see your ish." Emphasis added. Jane's mother also continued to encourage Jane's relationship with the defendant, telling her to be a little feisty, stating he married Aaliyah because she was feisty. She didn't let him run over her. You need to be different than the rest. Later that evening, Jane's mother texts Jane, "You are silly. That man ain't trying to do nothing with you musically. He want to F, period, because he like young girls." Jane reassured her mother that the defendant was willing to look at her performances and was patiently waiting to look at some of her videos that her mother had emailed her. On April 24, 2015, After the defendant had left Orlando, Jane's mother instructed Jane, you better be texting him so you will stay on his mind. Later that day, Jane texted her mother about flying out to see defendant in California. Jane, and I talked to R.KELLY. Mom, yeah, about what? Jane, laughed my A off. About flying me out. Mom, oh really? When? Jane, yeah, whenever I tell him he can. Tomorrow if I choose. Mom, oh yeah? On April 28, 2015, Jane traveled to Los Angeles, California to meet the defendant with the knowledge and consent of her parents. Jane continued to text with her mother once in Los Angeles. At one point, her mother told her he going to be in your room butt naked with one of his songs playing. Laugh out loud. Government's Exhibit 233 reflects that Jane and her mother text incessantly, while Jane was in Los Angeles, while the defendant, with the defendant. Jane tells her mother at one point, crazy, this Aaliyah movie just came on and I just got off the phone with R. Mom responded, really crazy. Jane testified. Okay, sorry, y'all. Jane testified that she had oral sex with the defendant in Los Angeles, but she did not share that information with her mother via text. At no point did Jane express any apprehensions about being with the defendant or ask her mother to arrange for her to come home. When Jane excitedly told her mother that she was riding defendant's tour bus to Stockton to attend his concert, Jane's mother responded, OMG, exciting you riding on the tour bus. On May 1st, 2015, Jane's mother urged Jane to take advantage of defendant, texting her, it won't be star lifestyle if you don't get serious about your music and show this man you want to be famous like him. Once he's tired of you, you'll be like everybody else. You better use this as your opportunity while you got him in spell. Jane's mother then said, you should text him and be like, you gonna be my boo and see what he say. To which Jane responded, laugh my A off. Jane traveled independently to meet defendant in Stockton, California, where he was performing on May 1st, 2015. She stayed in contact with her mother the entire time. At the point, Jane explained to her mother how she ended up going to Stockton to see defendant's performance. I told you. He asked me, did I want to come to his show? I said, of course. And he said, okay, then let's pack this stuff up. He was even putting his stuff in my bag. Jane and her mother remained in constant communication before defendant's show. Jane's mother instructed her about what to wear and made suggestions about how she should behave at the defendant's show. I will blow him a little kisses and wink at him and bite the tip of my finger, mess with him real good. Do something seductive, then make a silly face. Laugh out loud. Jane and her mother continued to text throughout defendant's performance. And at one point, Jane and her mother exchanged the following text. Hold on, y'all. Sorry, y'all. Okay. Jane, he's singing this whole show to me. Mom, laugh out loud, too funny. Jane, for real, for real. Jane, laugh my A off. Jane, this man in love. Mom, OMG, you gonna marry him and have his babies. Mom, laugh out loud. My son-in-law gonna be older than me. Mom, too dang funny. Jane, laugh my A off. Mom, well, you better get signed first, then marry second. Mom, he gonna seduce you tonight. Jane, laugh out loud. Mom, you have to give him a massage before he go to bed. Jane, laugh my A off. No, I doubt it. Mom, girl, you better or he will get someone else to. Jane's mother continued to encourage her to seduce defendant. At one point, Jane told her mother that she caught feelings for the defendant. According to Jane, she and defendant had sexual intercourse for the first time after the concert. At no point during her travels with the defendant in California in April and May of 2015 did Jane disclose that she was 17 years of age or that she had lied to him about her age. After the trip to California, Jane traveled to meet the defendant in Las Vegas, where he was performing. No rational jury could conclude that defendant enticed, persuaded, induced, or coerced Jane to travel to California. Jane's contemporaneous conversation, sorry y'all, that word is a little over my head, with her mother show that defendant invited Jane to join him, and she excitedly accepted. When her mother asked her when he asked her to travel, Jane told her mother, whenever I tell him I can, tomorrow if I choose. By her own admission, Jane chose to travel with the defendant because she wanted to, and her mother encouraged it. While this court concluded that Jane's parents' testimony was not relevant for the purpose defense counsel sought to introduce it, Jane's text messages with her mother, introduced as government's exhibit 233, were highly relevant evidence that defendant took no action to induce, persuade, or coerce Jane to travel with him. Jane was eager to travel with the defendant and caught feelings for him as she admitted and concealed her age from the defendant so she could pursue a relationship with him. The government's evidence fails to show that Jane was persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced into traveling to California. Wow, wow, wow. Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to get some information. Hold on, y'all. Sorry, y'all. I know I'm texting. Okay. Racketeering Act 9 Mann Act violation, Jane. The government charged defendant with 4 Mann Act violations stemming from a trip with Jane to California between September 2015 and October 2015, 2 months before her 18th birthday. According to Jane, she disclosed her true age, 17 years of age, prior to this trip. The government's evidence is insufficient as to these Mann Act violations. Okay. So y'all know I'm gonna be very transparent and honest, okay? And we're gonna keep going. This sounds horrible. We are not gonna play that. We're not gonna act as if we're not hearing what we hear. It sounds crazy, okay? However, just as well as we've heard in the court of law, an indictment is just a list of information, okay? And until it's been proven to be so, okay? So I know a lot of us are probably like, what the hell, okay? Don't be alarmed, okay? Do not be alarmed, all right? It's got to be submitted, okay? And Judge Donnelly has the authority to call bullcorn on these allegations and on this stuff, okay? So, all right, let's continue. But y'all know I'm going to be transparent. This sounds crazy. That's when I got the click-clacking and stuff like that. But yeah, this sounds very bad. It does. Okay. Racketeering Act 9A, transportation. Yep. Okay. For the same reasons argued in connection with Racketeering Act AA, the government failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that defendant transported Jane with the intent of exposing her to herpes in September or October 2015 and committed a violation of the health code, okay? Goes on to say coercion or enticement, insufficient evidence exists to prove that the defendant committed Racketeering Act 9B. By all accounts, defendant and Jane were in a serious and legal relationship based in Illinois, where the defendant resides in fall of 2015, although Jane testified that she told the defendant her true age after the summer ended in 2005. The record does not reflect precisely when she told the defendant her true age. As such, the government failed to show the defendant possessed the request means Ray to sustain a charge of unlawful sexual intercourse with a person under 18. That's the law. It don't matter if she disclosed it or not. It's still the law. So even if hold on, y'all. Hey, Jean. Yeah, y'all. Wow. Okay. So let's continue. Y'all know I'm gonna be honest. Okay. It sounds very bad. Woo, that is horrible. Okay, like what the entire hell? You know what I'm saying? But again, y'all, like I'm telling y'all, just because it's coming across don't mean that it's factual. Okay. Remember, we heard all kinds of stuff come across the stand, and then when they had the person on there, that wasn't even what it was. So, all right, okay, so let's continue. Furthermore, the record is devoid of evidence that the defendant took any action to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Jane into traveling to California between September and October 2015. Critically, when defendant learned that Jane had lied about her age, he sent her home to Florida. And see, y'all see what I'm saying? We know that's a lie. We know that that's a lie. He didn't just voluntarily send her home. He sent her home because it was time for her to go to school. And he wanted to get her all her stuff together. So, you know what I'm saying, she can live with him. Like, we not see, so that's what I'm saying, y'all. I know if you hear it and you like, what the hell? But don't throw the whole bath out with the baby, okay? Let's continue, because nah. Okay. Okay. Although it is true that Jane's parents did not have the authority to consent to any illegal sexual activity between Jane and the defendant, their permission to allow her to stay with the defendant is reflective of Jane's desire to continue her relationship with the defendant. Jane offered no testimony to suggest that she was coerced or enticed into traveling to California in fall of 2015. Jane's testimony about defendant's rules. Okay. Jane's testimony about defendant's rules and sexual proclivities during this time period are not sufficient evidence of coercion to travel. Even if Jane now believes, with the benefit of hindsight, that defendant's conduct was controlling or constituted some type of grooming. Okay. Yeah, you okay, Gene? You okay, baby? It's towards we trying to get on the home stretch, but it's okay, baby. You came in a spicy time. This is crazy. Racketeering Act 9C, coercion or enticement. The government charged defendant with a Mann Act violation under the separate theory that defendant transported Jane to California in September or October 2015 with the intent to violate the penal code, unlawful sexual intercourse with a person under the age of 18, preliminary for the reasons argued. Okay, so same reason why they saying, because he was not aware. So basically that's what they're saying, that he kind of gets away with this because he wasn't aware. You know what I'm saying? But then it also says the age of consent in Illinois is 17. All right. However, okay. Therefore, the defendant and Jane's sexual relationship was not prohibited there. Jane traveled with the defendant to numerous states as one of his partners. She went consensually and voluntarily. Okay. Defendant did not have to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce her to travel, even if the government is correct that the defendant had exerted some dominance or control in the relationship at the time. Furthermore, as argued in connection with Racketeering Act 5, the government provided insufficient evidence that defendant used any words to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Jane to travel to California. Okay. The mere hold on. The mere fact, the mere fact that defendant texts with Jane about any number of things does not satisfy the interstate commerce element of this Mann Act violation. Transportation. She can prove her point is to show that the enterprise had sex with the girls as well. It is true that in the state of California, the age of consent is 18. According to Jane, she had sexual relations with defendant in California during this trip when she was still 17 years of age. However, the government failed to prove defendant guilty of the Mann Act under this theory, where defendant's motivating purpose in traveling to California was not to have sex with the Jane. Oh God, they are idiots. Okay. Defendant and Jane had a consensual and legal sexual relationship in Illinois. Defendant's purpose in traveling to California was to perform, and he arranged for his girlfriend to go with him. If defendant has sexual relations with Jane in California in September and October, it was purely incidental to the purpose of the trip, as Jane herself testified when asked. And while you were 17, did you take additional trips to California with the defendant? Yes, I did. And do you remember where you traveled? I do not. Do you remember what the purpose of your travel was for? He had shows. No rational jury could find the government proved, basically, they saying they couldn't prove that. At bottom, no nexus exists between the transportation of Jane and alleged illegal sexual activity. Child. Sexual exploitation of Jane. Whew. Where it offered insufficient evidence that defendant used, employed, persuade, induce, or entice Jane to take part in sexually explicit conduct for the purpose of conducing a visual depiction between September 2015 and December 30th, the government contends that prior to Jane's 18th birthday, the defendant recorded his sexual experiences with her in California. To demonstrate that the defendant committed sexual exploitation of a child pursuant to 18 USC 22251A, it is not enough for Jane to simply allege that the defendant recorded sexually explicit conduct. Jane offered no testimony that proved that the defendant used, persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced her into sexually explicit conduct during the relevant time period. Jane had an ongoing sexual relationship with the defendant before the video recorded incident and after the video recorded incident, although Jane seems to regret those experiences. She did not offer sufficient evidence of enticement or coercion. The government must prove that the defendant did something more than just film the sexually explicit conduct. Okay. All right. Furthermore, the government failed to prove that the defendant acted with a purpose of producing a visual depiction of that conduct, although the jury was erroneously, the same little depiction down at the bottom that they always say, okay? Racketeering Act 11, forced labor of Jane. The government charged the defendant with forced labor of Jane under a theory that the defendant required Jane to participate in sex with other men and other women. Although at trial, Jane claimed that she did not want to participate in those activities and that she did not enjoy those activities. That does not mean that Jane was forced to participate in activities. This woman is crazy. I'm just going to put that out there. This woman is crazy. This woman is crazy. If Jane refuses even now to allege that she was forced by threats of violence to engage in certain sex acts, it is unclear why the government believes she was, again, blatantly acknowledging that one really did not want to participate in the conduct is not the equivalent of being forced. The record is devoid of any evidence that Jane was forced, when the meaning of the statute to have sex with individuals other than the defendant, or that she was prohibited in any way from extracting herself from the relationship. The government evidence that Jane, and you guys, we're almost wrapping up. We got 10 more pages to go. Sorry, y'all. Baby came in and this ain't appropriate. The government's evidence that Jane was forced to participate in sexual acts consisted of Alex's nephew's testimony that some women he had sex with were zombie-ish, and that defendant had directed women other than Jane to participate in group sex. Rather than point the jury to specific evidence from Jane's testimony that reflected that she had been forced to participate in these activities through violence, restraint, or threat of violence, the government argued that defendant had directed Dominique to have sexual intercourse with Alex. While the government was permitted to offer an extraordinary amount of uncharged bad act evidence for various purposes, such evidence cannot supplement the government's burden to show that Jane herself was forced to participate in group sex acts. The evidence offered was insufficient proof of the offense of forced labor as discussed in connection with the Racketeering Act 6. Okay. It goes on to say that the defendant and Jane had a sexual relationship that some might consider abusive. The government was required to establish a causal link. Okay. Again, as it says in each one of them. Okay. Oh, totally forgot. There we go. Mann Act violations with faith. The government charged defendant with 2 Mann Act violations in connection with Faith's trip to New York in May of 2017, alleging that the defendant violated the that particular code. The government charged that the defendant either transported or persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Faith to travel to New York with the purpose of knowingly exposing her to an infectious venereal disease under the New York Public Health Act. All right. It goes on to say the government failed to prove Mann Act violations under those codes, where it offered insufficient evidence that defendant transported Faith with the intent of exposing her to herpes. I don't know how intentful you can get if you having sex with somebody knowingly that you have it. Number 2, persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Faith to travel to New York with the intent of exposing her to herpes. Separately, the government failed to prove that defendant committed the offense of reckless endangerment or a violation. Okay. Intent. Because there is no link connecting the defendant's transportation of Faith with an intent to expose her to herpes, defendant cannot be guilty of a Mann Act violation. As discussed, okay, and then it breaks down the violation right here as we see, okay? All right, let's get to it. Because the defendant's permanent, okay, we already know that, okay? All right, okay, let me see, where do we get with her? Okay, New York Public Health, blah, blah, blah. Okay, prohibiting him from exposing a partner to herpes was incidental to Faith's trip rather than a motivating purpose in transporting Faith. The intent requirement of the statute cannot be sustained. The government argued to the jury that it should find defendant guilty of a Mann Act violation by merely finding that the defendant transported Faith to New York from her hometown in Texas for the purpose of sex. The only remaining issue is whether the sexual activity that he brought her here for was illegal, and it was. This argument is legally flawed. Transporting Faith to New York to have sex would not satisfy the elements of a violation under the section, okay? Since the sex act itself was perfectly legal, as Faith was a consenting adult The activity that was allegedly illegal in New York was exposing Faith to herpes. Thank you. It is that act that must be motivating purpose behind defendant's transportation of Faith. Because the government cannot demonstrate a nexus between, okay, let's keep going. Coercion or enticement. The government alternatively argues that defendant is guilty of the Mann Act stemming from Faith's trip May 18, 2017, trip to New York, because defendant knowingly persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Jane to travel to New York for the purpose of exposing her to herpes. Insufficient evidence exists to prove that the defendant took any action to induce, entice, coerce Jane to travel to New York on May 18, 2017. The evidence shows that the defendant invited a grown woman to meet him in New York, and she accepted. In March of 2017, Faith attended one of the defendant's concerts in San Antonio, Texas, with her sister. Faith had an opportunity to meet the defendant at an after party backstage along with other individuals. Defendant and Faith had a conversation during the after party, and the defendant provided her with his phone number. After that encounter, Faith and the defendant kept in touch via text and FaceTime. The conversations were normal, appropriate, and pleasant. Okay, defendant complimented her appearance. We know all of this. Faith testified that the defendant referred to himself as daddy during those conversations. According to Faith, defendant asked to be called by daddy, and she complied. Faith did not testify that the defendant forced her to call him daddy. Indeed, defendant and Faith had met exactly one time when Faith began calling him daddy. On the issue of travel, Faith had this to say. Question. In your communications with the defendant, how, if at all, did the topic of traveling to see him come up? He had informed me that he was on tour now, or excuse me, at the time he was on tour. So he was just saying his schedule was kind of crazy, but whenever I wanted to come see him, I could. And he just said that he could arrange the days or just let him know when I wanted to come hang out. But that it would be fun. I would get to see, how he is on tour, things like that. Defendant told Faith that if she wanted to come to his show, she could contact his assistant and he would arrange it for her. Faith then contacted the defendant's assistant, who made travel arrangements for her. Originally, Faith was going to travel to Chicago, but ultimately traveled to New York for one of the defendant's performances. According to Faith, the defendant informed her that he was having a show in New York. Girl, we know all of this. You trying to catch yourself up. She trying to catch herself up. We already know all this. Get to the point. Okay. No rational jury. Oh, and y'all can go back and read that. I'm sorry. I skimmed past it, but you can pause it and go back and read it. But I already know these transcripts. No rational jury could conclude from Faith's testimony that defendant coerced or enticed her to travel to New York for the purpose of giving her herpes. Okay, so saying that, she wasn't coerced because she chose to come, basically. That's what they're trying to say. Faith's testimony does not establish any conduct on the part of the defendant that shows he did anything other than invite her to come to his concert in New York, an invitation she accepted. Yeah, but he had the mind frame of having sex with her, and knowing that he had herpes, he was out of order. Whatever, girl. Frankly, if this conduct proves coercion or enticement by proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the government is going to be very busy prosecuting Mann Act violations. Although it seems unlikely that the government has much of an intention of using this provision to prosecute influential, wealthy white men who invite women on fancy trips for the purpose of engaging in sexual activity that those women later decide was unpleasant. Girl, you tried it. Now she's trying to pander to the black people. Now she's trying to pander to the black people because he's black. Girl, let me hear up and wrap this up. She's an idiot. New York Public Health Law section. Okay, this is the law. Okay. To sustain the Mann Act violation charge in connection with face travel to visit the defendant in New York on February 2nd, 2018. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Okay, sorry, y'all. Sorry about that, y'all. We on this month for 2.5 hours, y'all. 2.5 hours. Okay, let's continue. Okay, we got a few more pages and we out this thing. But I do want to read you guys because she also submitted a request for a court. She wants to try to submit for him to have a retrial. That's not what you want, sis. That's not what you want. But I want to read that real quick for you guys as well. Okay. Yes. Okay. So it says February on New York. Let me see. The government alleged that the defendant could have been charged with the violation of New York. Could be charged. Endangerment because he created a substantial risk of serious physical injury. Yeah, when he had unprotected sex with Faith, knowing that he had herpes. At the outset, Faith did not contract genital herpes from the defendant despite her misleading testimony. What? What the hell? What is she talking about? After returning from New York, Faith claimed she was diagnosed with herpes type 1 after getting cold sores on her mouth. Nearly 50% of the population has herpes type 1. Y'all, she pulling Natasha K. This lady done pulled Natasha K. Everybody got herpes type 1. No, she didn't. What? Presumably, even the government would concede that this point. Furthermore, as a matter of law, unprotected sex with someone who has genital herpes does not establish a substantial risk of serious physical injury. It doesn't? According to the City Health Department 1 in 4 New Yorkers has general herpes. If sexual intercourse with individuals who merely carry the genital herpes virus carries a substantial risk of serious physical injury, New York City, okay, look, y'all. Now, okay, now she's reaching. Now she's basically saying, you know, if this is the case, then everybody, you get what I'm saying? No, baby, you deflecting. Yeah, you deflecting. He can't be going around giving people herpes, period. What are you talking about? That is deflection if I ain't never seen it. 95% of the people in the world got that. So what? Don't nobody want it though. Ain't nobody herpes. I'll sign here. Nobody's signing up for that, girl, please. Y'all, that's exactly what she's doing. Although the government's expert witness identified some serious but unusual health risks associated with the contraction of genital herpes, the offense of reckless endangerment requires a showing of substantial risk of serious physical injury. This girl got to take pills for the rest of her life. Are you kidding me? This lady needs it. Okay. The government did not satisfy this burden. Okay. I'm going to keep reading. Even if defendant had given Faith genital herpes, the government evidence would be insufficient to sustain a charge for reckless endangerment. Herpes is not deadly and rarely causes any serious protracted health impairments. Girl, I'm ready to get this over with. Okay, this is just... Okay, here we go. Now we're talking about something. She says, for the reason previously identified by defendant in his motion to strike allegations from count 1 of the superseding indictment and dismiss the remaining counts. Additionally, the statute is void for vagueness as it fails to put the public on notice of what conduct constitutes criminal behavior and authorizes arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement. Okay. Forced labor with Faith. Again, no rational jury could conclude. Y'all see that, right? I'm skimming through it because we still have one piece of article that we need to actually read, okay? Basically, they saying that how it's put in this statute, it was not received. They didn't think so. This is the breakdown of it. Y'all can go back and read it, okay? It says, according to the government, on January 13, 2018, the defendant violated the forced labor statute by using threats of violence to obtain labor and act of oral sex from Faith. The forced labor statute was not intended to reach isolated conduct like that described by Faith. Faith testified that she traveled to Los Angeles. We know she traveled to it, and this is the one where she had the gun. Where the gun situation. They saying that don't mean he was forcing her. It don't mean just because that gun was allegedly there. That don't mean nothing. Okay. The forced labor statute was not enacted to remedy isolated occurrences like the one described by Faith. Child. Anyways, the Mann Act violation for Faith, the government charged the defendant with a second. Okay, evidence was insufficient. Okay, for the same reason argued in the connection. Okay, so we're just gonna skim through. We're gonna see. Y'all can go back and read where they're saying. Okay, we got 2 more pages left of this. And I really want to get into this last document, okay? All right, so here it is. She says the government failed to prove counts 2 through 9 of the indictment. The government charged defendant with 3 standing Mann Act charges that mirror racketeering acts 8 and 9 related to Jane for the reasons argued. Okay, the government failed to prove counts 2 through 5 of the indictment. Similarly, the government charged defendant with 3 standing Mann Act violations that mirror racketeering acts 12 and 14. For the reason argued, okay, the government failed to prove counts 6 through 9 of the indictment. In conclusion, for the foregoing reasons, this court should enter an order acquitting defendant of all offenses. Respectfully submitted, Jennifer Bonjean. You're an idiot. She's an idiot. She's an idiot. Okay. Now let's get into this. I told y'all she has another motion to where she's trying to get a new trial for him. Okay. We're gonna skim through that again, but I want to put this on record too. And then we're gonna wrap this up. All right. Okay. So it says right here, defendant Robert Kelly's notice of motion for a new trial. Okay. I, Jennifer Bonjean, an attorney at law, certify that I filed defendant's notice of a motion for a new trial. Okay. So let's see what she's trying to talk about here real quick. Okay, we're not going to read all of this. Okay, we're just not. It says agreement. Defendant was denied effective assistance of counsel where his trial attorneys failed to conduct a meaningful. Wow. What? Wow. Of potential jurors and challenged unqualified jurors, some of whom had watched the inflammatory docu-series Surviving R.KELLY or were familiar with prior accusations of sexual abuse of minors against defendant, counsel's objectively unreasonable performance during voir dire resulted in the impaling of a jury that was neither fair nor in peril. Oh, wow. So, y'all, here we go. She's basically trying to say that his counsel was ineffective. Trying to say that his counsel was ineffective. So she's trying to go that route. Defendant is entitled to a new trial where one of his trial attorneys labored under a disabling conflict of interest as a result of her stipulated representation of the defendant and government star witness Jane. That was imputed to the entire defense team. So I'm not going to read all of this, but basically they're calling out, hey, baby, good. You going to bed? Good night. They're calling out Miss Becker. Like we didn't see that coming. Yep. So they're calling out Becker. basically as being a bad counsel. Okay. Wow. So they're asking for a new trial. Asking for a new trial. New trial, y'all. She's asking for a new trial. Rule 24 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure governs. Wow. An effort to protect defendants' cherished guarantee of a fair and impartial jury trial. She is submitting for another trial. And saying that the jurors were basically coerced in a sense, that they knew more than what they needed to. Here it goes. It says, for example, juror number 3 provided the following information in the questionnaire. Question: the case for which you are summoning involved the defendant, Robert Sylvester Kelly, also known as R.KELLY. Have you read, seen, or heard anything about the case, alleged crimes? In which, or people involved, in which she responds, or this person responds, I watched the documentary, but I forgot the name of it. Okay. Have you read, seen, or heard about Robert Kelly, also known as R. Kelly? Yes, entertainer. I heard that he has been sleeping with underage girls. Wait, what? I'm drooling. What? Have you watched or heard any interviews of Robert Kelly or any TV shows featuring him, or any specials or documentaries about him? Is your answer yes? Question: what were your general impressions? I saw a documentary about him and his legal troubles. I don't know the full story, so I have no feelings and remain impartial. Do you know anything about the Me Too movement? Yes, it's a movement that seeks justice for rape victims 25 to 30 years after the fact. Trial counsel did not ask the court to question the juror further about his response to the questions, or to determine whether the juror could truly serve as impartial and unbiased juror in light having seen salacious and highly, wow. I'm gonna scroll this so y'all can read it, because I'm not gonna read all this. It is getting late. We're about to be 3 hours in, so I'm about to make this be big on the screen so you guys can go back and read it. And again, I'm just going through them so you can go back and pause the screen and read yourself. Okay. So she's basically calling out the jury, and she's saying basically the incompetence of the counsel. Like, we didn't see that coming. Almost finished, y'all. Becker again. They calling out Becker. Okay, this is the last page, y'all. In light of foregoing, defendant's convictions must be vacated and a new trial ordered. Wow, child, girl, bye. Good luck with that. Okay, so that's that on that, everybody. This was a long show. I am so sorry. I will chop this down in size. I literally stopped my straight talk. Y'all know how we do on Thursday, and I came up over here. Because I told you guys, as soon as it came to me, I was going to get it to you guys. So I do apologize for the pauses and the in between, because this was not expected. I thought it was going to be done quite earlier than this. And you know, I usually be wrapped up by now, laying up with my husband, to be honest with you. So I do apologize. I had to stop, help, you know, tend to the kiddos and things to that nature. So I do apologize. And then I you know, I'm a little long-winded. I was putting in my little 2 cents in between it, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I understand some things. Y'all know I'm gonna be transparent. I do see where some areas could have been messed up at, but see, I'm not law. I don't know the laws and stuff like that. I hear what she's saying, you know what I'm saying? However, I'm super excited to see what Judge Donnelly has to say in regards to this, because no shade, no tea. It's kind of like she's even saying that Judge Donnelly missed it and didn't do her due diligence. You know what I'm saying? So I just really want to see how the judge is going to respond to this motion. Now, you guys know, I told you guys they have until next month to respond. I, however, for one, and this can go on record, don't think it's going to take that long. Judge Donnelly moves extremely fast, okay? And if we can read it like that within a day, and you know, she knows the trial and stuff like that, I don't think it's going to be any different for her. Yeah, we'll go back and we're actually divulge and we'll take everything in, and y'all know I'm gonna break stuff down. I was kind of rushing through stuff, skimming through stuff or whatever, but I did read the meat of it, which was that R.KELLY situation. Man, I ain't gonna lie, I was texting Angela. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like, brother, what is this? What is this, Gigi? What is this? You know? But yeah, I kind of was like taking her back, because I'm like, what the heck? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like some of that information is like, yeah, we did hear about that, but we didn't hear about that part. You know what I'm saying? And it's just kind of like, well, did the prosecution just pull out this information? You know what I'm saying? So it can be reflective. Y'all know me, again, I'm gonna be transparent. It sounds horrible. It sounds bad. But a lot of the stuff that she was saying was not factual either. I'm like, no, that's not true. No, that we found out that wasn't, you know what I'm saying? So, can this be a win for the other side? Absolutely. If they read that, and I know how their minds are, they're over there like, praise Jesus, he's coming home for St. Patrick's Day. He gonna be here with his green on. You know, but again, let's be very clear. This would be a situation for New York. He still has Chicago. He still has Minneapolis, Minnesota. Like, you know, but at the end of the day, I don't care if this stuff get overturned, rerun, okay? He's still guilty. The evidence don't change anything. If we do this over, which I was surprised, but she wants to do a new trial. She wants to do it over. Girl, that's stupid. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. That's kind of weird because, like I told y'all before, I said these victims, because they've been proven to be victims, these victims are stronger now. So to put them back, we got glitches. Okay. So to put them back on the stand, I don't know, child. Yeah, not a whole acquittal. I wouldn't do that. I would, like you said, yeah, I would drop some of the charges, but you talking about throw the whole thing out. They just screwed the whole thing. They proved a lot of stuff. They proved more of stuff than they did not. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna see what Judge Donnelly has to say in regards to everything. It doesn't have to stop here, y'all. Let's talk in the comments. Hold on. I myself personally don't feel no ways about it. I don't, because at the end of the day, just like the whole Bill Cosby situation, he was guilty. He said he's guilty. He got out on a technicality. And if this is what they need to do to get him off on this or whatever, then whatever floats your boat. But I don't think so. It sounds good, but I don't think so. And y'all know I haven't steered y'all wrong just yet. I just know we know the case. We read the transcripts. We know the truth. We know what allegations were put out there, even with Miss Clary. You know what I'm saying? We know a lot of stuff. We know a lot more than she do. Okay. So I don't know, y'all. Y'all tell me what y'all think down in comments below. Sorry I didn't get to a lot of your comments or whatever the case may be. Like I said, comment. Let's talk about it. Tell me what you guys think about this. We've been waiting on this. It's not really a loss for us, not a win, but we get to see the card, her hand. We get to see what hand she is playing, and it is that the whole prosecution did poorly, that they didn't prove anything, there was no evidence, and then also that she wants a new trial. So we know her hand, we see how she's going to play it. Now we just have to see how Judge Donnelly is going to do this. If she's going to grant it, if she's going to want more information, or she's going to say, girl, bye. We don't know. I don't know. But that is the video, you guys. Thank you guys so much for riding this mug out with me. Like I said, I do sincerely apologize that this took forever and a day to get through. But you guys have all the information that you need on this channel. You guys can run it through and play it back. I'm going to probably re-upload it. Yeah. But I love y'all. Y'all have a good night, a good morning, and all that. And I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. This was exhausting, but kudos for the defense. I didn't think they was going to put anything in. I thought she was going to submit another request for extension, or better yet, to kind of get out of this situation. But she actually submitted something, and her stuff sounded like it could be bad. Could it sound like ooh, but we'll see, you guys. Now the ball is in the court of the judge, Hey, Atmos. Hey, honey. Atmos, I don't know if you know, but she submitted a motion to a new trial, brother. She submitted a motion for a new trial. Hold on, I gotta see from my brother before we go off. Did you read that over there? Because if not, I got it. And you can hit it in the morning. It's short. It's 24 pages. And my thing is that it takes a lot of the hard taxpayer monies to do these trials and to get all this and do all this. And she's asking for a retrial. To me, not trying to be funny, it's kind of like a slap in the face of the judicial system, Judge Donnelly, the prosecution, it's like, what, girl? You just getting here and you up here talking and saying all this chink and chong, girl. Bye. But I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But anyways, y'all, we will see. I was waiting on my brother, but I guess he must have left it out here. But I love y'all. I'm finna get out of here. It's been 3 hours. I'm finna go hug on my husband. But, you know, I'm gonna have to wrap it up the way we do it here at Whitney D TV. You're killing me with this.
Y'all killing me with this. I can't help.
Robert.
I can't help. You're killing me, man. This ain't not about music. I'm trying to have a relationship with my kids, and I can't do it. Y'all just don't want to believe the truth. You don't want to believe it.
At this point, we briefly pause the interview to give Kelly a moment.
Man, y'all killing me with this. Y'all killing me with this. Y'all killing me with this. Y'all killing me. Y'all trying to kill me. Y'all killing me with this. Y'all killing me with this. Y'all killing me with this. Y'all killing me with killing me, man. Trying to kill me. Killing me, man. Trying to kill me. Y'all don't wanna believe it. Trying to kill me. Killing me, man. Trying to kill me. I hope this camera keep going. Stupid R.KELLY. Fight for my life. Stupid R.KELLY. Do it. Stupid R.KELLY. Fight for my life. Stupid R.KELLY. Do it. Shit. Not none, dog. A store like that.
I ain't got none.
I want a cookie.
Ain't got none.
I want a cookie.
Ain't got none.
I want a cookie, yeah. I want a cookie.
Ain't got none.
Stupid.
What up, Witness Nation? Now, you know we're super sleuths over here. We all about the facts, evidence over emotions. Let's see what we've discovered. I'm Whitney. Keep it cute.